Hi, I'm John Tate. I'm located here in Montgomery, Texas. I got my camera guy Landon with me. And the purpose of this video is to talk to you about this mulcher that I bought online at a auction. And the reason I'm putting this online is I need to get information out there because I wasn't able to find a good amount of information on this device. And it turns out that there's not a lot of manuals out there, but I'd like to share with you what I found, and in hopes that you will share with me what you find, and possibly as we use these things, run into problems, we'll be able to share that information and help each other out. So this is the 60-inch wide mulcher. Landon, if you'll come over here and we'll show the label on it. It's pretty common. This is the label here. It's a TopCat, and if you go out on the auction sites and such, it'll be listed as a TopCat. If you do some research, you're going to find TopCats not easily documented. There's not a lot out there, but I will tell you what I have found so far. So what I know is that if you go out to a website called tiller-king.com, that will redirect you to, I apologize, HCT Industries, and at that site you will be able to find this device, and there's just a few line items about the specifications, the pressure, the RPMs, and things like that. But what I wanted to show you is what else I found. I think this might be helpful to you. And so if you go online to palletforks.com, and I'll post these links, I'll post all these links in the video, you will find at palletforks.com that they were once, if not still, selling this particular mulcher. And it says Titan attachments. But if you look deeply into it, what I discovered is this looks like the exact device. So you'll see some of the pictures. There's actually a video of it in operation. And so when I found this, and you can download this as a PDF online, again, I'll have the link out there for you, but it kind of goes through and shows you some of the most important things. And what I'd like to talk about in this video is not only take the covers off and show you what's going on, but make sure that you, before you turn this thing on, before you start operating it, that you do at least these things, that you grease and oil the most important parts. And I'm going to show those parts to you, at least what I discovered. The other thing in here, in this PDF, which was very, very helpful, it does show you some of the locations, okay, where you're going to put the oil in, what you will look for when you get under the hood. And probably very helpful was this page right here, which was the Mulcher Specifications. Now I can't guarantee this is exactly the same for your mulcher or all TopCat mulchers, but I can tell you it's pretty close. And I can tell you that based upon doing some research on the hydraulic motor that's in the unit, and I'll show you that in a minute. So on this chart, we're able to find out what the gallon per minute should be for this device, what the revolutions we're expecting, maximum pressures, and items like that. So this is very helpful if you don't have any information about this mulcher at all. So again, I'll have this link out there. It's most commonly called a Titan. There's actually a label on the side of it that says Titan, but you will find that at palletforks.com. You may have to go looking for it. It was hard to find. All right. The other thing is it had an electrical connection. I had no idea what it was, had to do some research on that. And that was over here. But the question is, what was this wire? It came just basically, there was a pigtail on here, I've modified it, is what is this electrical connection for? And it turns out there is a fan inside here. I'm going to show you that in a bit. But you have to wire this fan up. It cools the hydraulics. You have to wire this fan up to your skid steer. If you have, it is 12 volts. If you have a 14-pin connector, or whatever kind of connector you have, you'll need to get you one of these adapters, and you'll need to wire it in so that that fan will run during operation. Now I got this one at Skid Steer Genius. They're not cheap, but it was a pretty nice kit. The cool thing about Skid Steer Genius is that, hard to do anything with these gloves on, is that they'll have this chart. If you've got a 14-pin connector, they have this chart which will show you the model names. You'll find your model, and it will show you what all the pinouts are. Okay, you've got a diagram to show the layout. It's got the model over here, so you find your model. In my case, I just came down here to talk to Uchi, went across and found out where the 12-volt pins were, wired it up, and I've already hooked it up and tested it, so I know it's working. So Skid Steer Genius is one good place to get these. You may have a source of your own, but I'll post that online as well. Hey there, come dog. All right, so let's get started. First of all, let's start with the hydraulics. So when this thing came to me, these quick disconnect couplers were kind of a problem. You had, they were 5/8 inch quick disconnects, which is not that common, I don't think, at least not on the equipment I've used. And I needed 3/4 or 1/2 inch. And on my Takeuchi, it's a 3/4 on the high flow, a 1/2 inch on the standard flow. And I needed to be able to match this hose to that. And what I discovered was this shipped with what's called BSP threaded connectors. That's a British standard. It was a metric to BSP ORB connection, and I could not find quick connectors that would match that up. So I ended up just taking the hoses off, going down to my local hydraulic hose place. Here it was over in Conroe. Went into Huffco at Conroe, just took the hoses in, showed them what I was trying to do, and Sonny over there, the owner, he just took care of it. So for under $100, got the whole thing taken care of and matched to my skid steer. So if you're battling that, trying to find the right connectors, my advice is to take the hoses off, go to the nearest hydraulic hose place and just let them fix it and make it work for you. So I spent a lot of hours trying to find them. I should have just went over to Huffco and got it done. All right, so first thing, let's talk about those maintenance items, where you grease and where you oil. There are basically 3 locations, according to the manual, that you want to oil. The first set is here on the side. I've already got the bolts out of here to save us some time. And save you from the embarrassment of you watching me drop them on the ground constantly. Now, I'm going to show this panel here. What I didn't show you at first was there's this access panel. Now on my skid steer, when I took that access panel, I couldn't really access anything. My expectation is that panel is supposed to let me get to this grease fitting, but that panel is actually sitting down here. There's no way I could get to that grease fitting. So I'm not exactly sure what that's all about. Could be over time this stretches and it finds its way there. I have no idea. So the first thing you want to do is you want to make sure you grease this fitting. Mine, it was pretty darn dry. I mean, I pumped several times before I saw any amount of grease at all showing up in there. The next item is you got to put gear oil in the gearbox. And this down here is the gearbox. You'll see this hose down here. It runs up here and it comes up to this vent. And you can try filling it from here by taking this vent off and filling it. Just know that the crimps that are in the hose make it a little difficult, right? And you're supposed to fill it until oil runs out the fill hole. Now, the way I have the tractor, the implement oriented, I have it laying back on this flat surface because it's more stable. If I put it on this flat surface, then this is more, how would you say, halfway across, but the unit is very unstable. So I basically just filled it up till I saw oil coming out. It does have a vent hole. If it overheats, it'll just push that oil out. Now, so you've got the grease fitting you got to take care of. You've got to put oil in here. The manual over there does say what oil it is. In fact, this is what I'm using. This is not exactly, it asks for an 85/90, and I'm just using an 80/90. Okay, I'm pretty sure that's perfectly fine. Just got that at the local Napa. All right, so those are the 2 pieces on this side. Let's go over here to the other side and show you the other one. So you've got to fill that up with gear oil. The manual says fill it up till it starts running out. And over here you have basically the same thing. You got a fill hole and you got a breather, and the manual basically says fill it up till it comes out of that breather or it comes out of this hole right here. So there's 2 plugs here. I guess this is the drain, which means if you were sitting on this piece, it would in fact drain. This would be oriented and this would be the bottom and it would drain out. So grease, oil, oil. Now here's the part in the manual that was a little bit confusing, and that is there's this access point right here. And rather than go through the access point, I'm just going to pull this whole plate off. Alright, and there's your hydraulic motor. And this is a breather, which indicates that it's expecting expansion of air, the heat, try to come out. And the manual says that this should have gear oil in it as well. And then you should fill it till it comes out of the drain hole. But there are no drain holes. So there's some debate amongst my peers as to whether or not this particular gearbox needs any kind of oil. that it might be a spider type connection where there's no oil actually required. But the manual did say, put gear oil in here until it comes out the drain hole. But there's no drain hole. So I took the chance. I just took this off, filled it up until I could see oil in there. I'm assuming that even if it doesn't require oil, if it expands, it'll just blow out that hole. The other thing is that I guess, and I'm betting, that not all of these are exactly the same. Maybe all TopCats are the same. But you'll notice when you take this plate off, you'll see the information about the hydraulic motor. You can, yeah, that's good right there. And so this will tell you a little bit about the hydraulic motor. You can then compare that to your manual to determine whether or not your specs are correct. I went ahead and had this Chinese translated by a friend of mine, and it basically is just saying what direction it spins. Right here, this says direction of turn, which direction it turns. W, I have no idea what that is. This is the power output. It's blank. I have no idea what that is. The next one down here, this is the date. So it's saying this thing was manufactured in August of 2021. Over here we have the serial number. Up here we have the revolutions per minute. The RPMs, it's blank. So I guess we'll just go by what the manual says. And then we have the power output here in megapascals. So we're talking at 32 megapascals, so we're probably talking 4,500 pounds PSI. This is the model number. If you were looking for this unit, that's the model number. And this is the company that made it. I should say this is the division of this company that made it. And I'll post that because I have the name of the company in case you ever had to go to China, because that's where it's all from, and get those parts. All right, so I put gear oil in here. I put gear oil in here. I put gear oil on that side. Let it run out, and I grease that. My expectation, oh, by the way, when I put gear oil in here, it was completely empty. I mean, there was no gear oil in there at all. So I would recommend that's the first thing you do. The other thing you want to check before you go too much further are these teeth. The first thing that caught my attention was they're all painted except for this one and one other on here. And so the concern was, why is it like that? So I got my breaker bar and I went through and I tightened them all, and I found several that were kind of loose. Not falling off, not wiggling, but they definitely didn't have the same torque as the others. So I would go ahead, be patient, take the time, make sure that you go through each one and make sure that you tighten them up before you turn that thing on. Because if one of those comes off, I think you're probably in good trouble. All right, so back around here to the fan that I was talking about. Let's get these out of the way. So this cover looks to me like, this cover and this cover looks to me like it's designed to be taken off so you can clean. Because underneath here is a radiator with the fan. The air comes in this way. It's pulled through the radiator for the cooling fins for the hydraulic and pushed out this way. That suggests to me that if you're out mulching and getting very dusty, you're going to suck all sorts of junk up through here. And that's going to fill up pretty fast, which means you're going to want to clean this. You can take this off and kind of see down through the fan, but I'm going to take this whole plate off so you can see what's going on under here. If you lift this piece up, be extremely careful, okay, because this right here is connected to this plastic pipe. Come on down here. And that's your hydraulic pressure hose. It's connected over here to this control valve, to this directional valve. And if you're not careful, it's kind of flimsy. You could crack that. But here's what's under here. And you probably should never have to take this off. But you see we got the 12-volt fan. Underneath here's the radiator or the cooler for the hydraulic. And you can see how air is going to come in here, along with dust, come up through that, and you're going to need to wash that out. The challenge is, there's only like a little tiny drain right over there. There might be one on this side. So, in fact, it kind of looks like there may not be any way for everything to get out of here. So if it's full of junk, you may have trouble getting it completely clean. Regardless, be careful with this. It's kind of tight. If you hook your fan up, make sure you've got the right polarity on the wiring, that the fan is pulling air this way if you push air, I'm thinking you may have more trouble. In other words, it won't cool as well. That's my thoughts. Anyone with better thoughts or different ideas, let me know. All right, so if you take this cover off, be careful of this. Be careful you don't break that. All that's under here is this fan, 12 volts. Connects to this. There's no switch. There does not appear to be any kind of fuse as well. All right, so let's see if we can get this little parcel back. Ouch, a little easier than taking it apart, but not by much. So that's it. That's the covers off. That's the things you need to look for. I hope you'll share your information with me if you have one of these or think about getting one. I hope that you will contact me. Let me know if you run into problems or have solved any particular problems, so that those of us who've bought them as a group, we can possibly help each other out.